Hi. So people are often asking me because I'm always banging on about neoliberalism. And like myself, years ago, I didn't used to know what neoliberalism is or was. But anyway, I've done a bit of research, and it's that's what this video is going to be all about. We're going to be looking at this book, Neoliberalism: A Critical Reader, edited by Alfredo, Saad-Filho, and Deborah Johnston, who are both professors who know a thing or two, a lot more than me about neoliberalism. Hooray! So, starting from the beginning, the introduction. Now, neoliberalism is an ideology, a propaganda vehicle that has been developed over the last few decades to basically increase the hands of wealth into the amount of wealth into the hands of the few, and to put everybody outside of those elites, make us poorer and poorer and poorer. But there's so much more to that. There's 30 chapters of an academic book to that. So I thought, well, we can do the short version, and we can do the longer version at the same time, because this is YouTube. In the introduction, so it's also the thing that's happened with neoliberalism, this ideology that market forces are sacrosanct, that the market is always the best way to organize ourselves. It's far superior than any other way of being. And it's taken on the role of a religion, but we don't know that, we don't realize it. And it's completely invisible, because in the societies that we live in, dominated by neoliberal ideology, we just can't see the wood for the neoliberal trees, unless you're a nice, clever professor. So they say that neoliberalism is part of a hegemonic project concentrating power and wealth in elite groups around the world, benefiting especially the financial interest within each country and the US capital internationally. Therefore, globalization and imperialism cannot be analysed separately from neoliberalism. And then they say they'll explain it. So they're saying it's much, much, much more. It's very all-pervasive. And then they say, we'll explain why. Jolly good, guys. They say neoliberalism is not a mode of production. It straddles a wide range of social, political, and economic phenomena at different levels of complexity. Some of these are highly abstract, for example, the growing power of finance or the debasement of democracy. And this book was written a few years ago, but it's really, I think it was 2005. Yeah, 2005. So in the ensuing 15 years, I think all these lessons have become even clearer. The debasement of democracy. I mean, look at the elections in most countries. Look at the way that the financial institutions have now got carte blanche to do whatever they want. 2008 bailout. All this of the financial institutions by our own banks. All this is key to our understanding of how, as vegans, we need to understand the structural, institutional forces that we're up against in order to successfully change the world and make it more, well, to stop the war on other animals. But this is key to our organizing. So they're saying some of the ways that neoliberalism happens are relatively concrete, such as privatization or the relationship between foreign states and local non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Nevertheless, it is not difficult to recognize the beast when it trespasses into new territories, tramples upon the poor, undermines rights and entitlements, and defeats resistance through a combination of domestic, political, economic, legal, ideological, and media pressures backed up by international blackmail and military force if necessary. So again, this was written in 2005, before the 2008 collapse. They know this is the project, the neoliberal project. It's clear once you start to understand what's going on, you can see it clearly. And then they say neoliberalism is inseparable from imperialism and globalization. Now, imperialism isn't a word you hear very much, which is great if you're part of an imperial power or a former imperial power like the UK or the US. In the conventional or mainstream discourse, imperialism is either absent or, more recently, proudly presented as the American burden. And that used to be called the white man's burden, eek, by the British imperialists, eek, as they colonized, large chunks of the world. To civilize the world and bring to all the benediction of the Holy Trinity. Notice the religious icon positioning, the Holy Trinity, the green-faced Lord Dollar and its deputies and occasional rivals, Holy Euro and Saint Yen, new converts, win a refurbished international airport, one brand new branch of McDonald's, 2 luxury hotels, 3,000 NGOs, very vital, and 1 US military base. This offer cannot be refused, or else. So that is effectively what the neoliberal globalization process is in a nutshell. They continue. And this is so true. Globalization is generally presented as an inescapable, it's progress, they say, inexorable and benevolent process. Leading to greater competition, welfare improvements, and the spread of democracy around the world, which is an absolute crock. When I lived in India, I saw at firsthand what was going on with the neoliberal ideology, the globalization. The way that the poorer are being made poorer all the time because of it. The tiny elites, the handful of elites are getting made richer. It's the same everywhere. Whether you're in Bangladesh or Bahrain or Bristol, it's the same. The same phenomenon is happening globally. This is neoliberalism. So they say, in reality, the so-called process of globalization, again, it's not something that people talk about so much these days, but it used to be a big thing a few years ago. To the extent that it actually exists, is merely the international face of neoliberalism, a worldwide strategy of accumulation and social discipline that doubles up as an imperialist project, spearheaded by the alliance between the US ruling class and locally dominant capitalist coalitions. So the elites in whatever country you're in are having lovely little chats with the US or maybe the UK, about, buy this chunk of land, build these huge condominiums or whatever, or bung your factories down here, labour costs very low, unions non-existent, hey, we're all sorted. The money goes to the hands of the elites. The workers suffer and the environment is trashed. What's all this got to do with veganism? Until we understand this process, we'll think that it's possible. How can it be possible? With one-to-one conversations to end the war on other animals. If we think that one-to-one conversations are enough, are we in need of a bit of a reality check, perhaps? I think we are. And I think it's very interesting that the authors of this book, in page 2 of the introduction are positioning neoliberalism as an actual religion, albeit almost, well, yeah, I mean, they're saying it's a religion, the Holy Trinity of the yen, this, that, and the other. So I could go on. Let's just move into page 3, and then I think we'll stop at page 3. So they're talking about how did it start? Where did it start? I remember with Thatcher, the milk snatcher in the UK, and they say that key elements of Thatcher's monetarist economic platform had been imposed by the previous Labour government. She only expanded them and gave them a compelling rationale. There was also an irresolvable tension between the puritanical claims made by milk-snatching Thatcher, Reagan's ventriloquists, and the intellectual harlots peddling their wares around the US imperial court, and the political practice of these neoliberal administrations. So the words that are being used here, milk-snatching Thatcher, Reagan's ventriloquist. So basically they're saying he was a puppet. We can think maybe other politicians are puppets, but who are they being? Who are the puppeteers? If the politicians are the puppets, who's pulling their strings? That would be the neoliberal interests behind them. When he talks about intellectual harlots, that's basically the media. He's saying that the journalists, or they're saying that the journalists are selling themselves to be part of the establishment, the neoliberal elite. Completely right, it's completely accurate. Peddling their wares around the US imperial court. So again, the words are saying it's not a democracy, it's an empire, the US imperial court. He talks about Reagan's voodoo economics. That's kind of part of the whole thing with neoliberalism, this voodoo element where they just make things up. They say things that are happening and they're not, or it's all coming out differently. I'm gonna take a bit of a break there because I think it's quite a lot to take in. He talks about purifying ritual of the Lord dollar, which is easily bending the natives' will in the countries where neoliberalism is being imposed. But we'll get back to that shortly. Thanks for watching. It's the most important word. There's a lot. There's only 30 chapters. So we're on page 3. So there's kind of a lot to be got through. Thank you for your time and energy. Together we can organise to end the war on other animals. You take care. Stay safe.